Another day, another Elon Musk-centered controversy. At this point, we're pretty sure the world's richest man is super bored in real life because he just can't stop saying things that land him in sticky situations. This time, he's not only ticked off a couple thousand netizens, but also dozens of his own employees who might be losing soon. Stay tuned to find out what he said this time. Starting with what happened. In a move that one could most certainly expect from Musk, the business mogul shared a message for his employees. He demanded that employees stop phoning it in. Confused? We were too. Basically, Elon doesn't believe in working from home or even hybrid workspaces and schedules. He vehemently believes that employees are only productive in the office, and he said as much in his message. Everyone at Tesla is required to spend a minimum of 40 hours in the office per week. That must be where your actual colleagues are located, not some remote pseudo office. If you don't show up, we will assume you have resigned, he said, talking to the talent at Tesla. The letter clearly shows that Musk expects his employees to work full-time in the office. He also thinks that seniority and bigger roles demand more hours at the office and a more visible presence. In a callous remark, he also said that people who don't make it should consider their employment terminated. Yikes! Moving on to why this is so problematic. In a world where hybrid workplaces and roles are becoming the norm, Musk's stand on office hours won't be well received. With inflation at a high and the labor market tight, his comments come from a place of undeniable privilege. Some people just can't afford to be in the office every day. It's as simple as that. The mandate will likely not be acceptable to some of Musk's employees at Tesla, and it will be downright spooky to Twitter staffers, which he is seeking to acquire. At present, Twitter employees enjoy a work-from-anywhere model, which has been going on since the pandemic. But how does this affect companies? According to Brian Kropp, who is the head of human resources research at Gartner Inc., a technology consulting company, companies demanding that their employees work in the office full-time are in for a surprise. Kropp shared that such companies will be left with two options. Either they make do with a smaller talent pool, or they will have to pay a compensation premium to force employees to come back. Another research was conducted by Slack Technologies, which is a company that offers a popular workplace communication service and operates under the banner of Salesforce Inc. A survey with a focus group of 10,000 white-collar workers concluded that 2 out of 3 knowledge workers, a group that includes engineers, data scientists, and graphic designers, prefer hybrid work regimes. Up next, there's the case of the empty offices. A study by Future Forum showed that only 19% of executives and 35% of non-executives work in the office 5 days a week at present. Those who do work in the office have reported that they struggle with higher levels of anxiety and stress, and if given the chance, would be happier working flexibly at least part-time, which doesn't sound like that big an ask. But Elon Musk disagrees. According to the business magnate, Tesla would have gone bankrupt long ago if he hadn't worked long hours in the office, bordering on living there half the time. But that's on you, Elon. He took things one step further by making fun of companies with hybrid workplace models and asked when they had shipped a great product last. It's been a long time, he quipped in answer to his own question. Moving on to the debate of professions. While some professions, especially those involving a heavy reliance on technology, can switch to hybrid regimes and work from home quite easily, such as tech giants Meta and Google. But for car makers, retailers, and some other firms, moving towards hybrid regimes can be daunting. With a mix of frontline and white-collar workers, the road to flexibility can be a very fine line indeed, with some workers being given more slack than others. The pandemic made this divide even more prominent. Blue-collar workers in hospitals, meatpacking plants, and grocery stores were risking their health to keep things running, while white-collar workers logged in safely from their home offices. This fed into class differences and made things that much worse for an already stratified U.S. economy. And looking around the industry, the new office mandate at Tesla is one of a kind. Competitors from the industry aren't taking quite as strict an approach as Musk's. For example, Ford Motor Company adopted a flexible hybrid model that allows their salaried employees to work from home most of the time. Staffers are only required to come to the office for collaborative tasks. Sounds smart. General Motors Company, on the other hand, has a permanent work appropriately model. What this means is that white-collared workers have the option to log in remotely rather than having to come into the office every day. Mitsubishi Motors North America Inc. has taken things one step further by offering their corporate sector employees to work from home all the time. However, Musk's views on remote work being pretend work aren't entirely new either. They represent a common school of thought about bosses. Such perceptions stem from the belief that employees who are working remotely aren't as collaborative or innovative as office-going employees, and thus are less productive. David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs Group Inc., shares similar views. Solomon shared last year that he thinks remote work is an aberration. Why? Morgan Stanley CEO James Gorman is of the same view. He expressed his frustration in his employees a while back, saying that he doesn't understand why New Yorkers can visit the city's restaurants just fine, but aren't able to come back into their offices. Contrary to these hot takes though, a study from Nicholas Bloom at Stanford University shared that remote workers are just as productive as office workers. In fact, they're better at their tasks since they don't have to deal with the stress and anxiety office employees deal with. This leads to remote workers being more satisfied in their jobs as opposed to office workers. Now, let's discuss what Twitter has to say on the matter. Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter has been the talk of the town ever since he tweeted about it, which is his favorite mode of communication, by the way. From whining about issues with Twitter bots, to hinting at wanting to buy the Bird app, to striking a deal at a ridiculous price and then later putting the deal on hold, Musk has kept fans and friends quite entertained throughout the entire ordeal. While the acquisition is currently on hold, as both companies iron out some details, it's worth noting that Elon's stance is completely opposite to the current policy at Twitter. Twitter is one of the most prominent tech companies at the forefront of hybrid work regimes. Some Twitter employees are allowed to work from home permanently. We're sure Musk won't appreciate that. Last year, Twitter had shared that if an employee was in a situation or a role that enabled them to work from home, they had no qualms about it. In fact, if the employee wanted to continue doing that forever, Twitter would make it happen. Now that's what we call a boss move. Great job, Twitter. Finally, it's better to move with the times. And Twitter is not alone. Pre-pandemic, only 9% of remote or hybrid workers were present worldwide, but now over half the population has switched to these models of work. This information was shared by Willis Towers Watson, a risk management and human resources firm that conducted a global study of employers. This just proves that the pandemic has taught us a valuable lesson about working from wherever you're based if you're unable to access an office space, and it would only be smart to move with the times. The director of the Center for Advanced Human Resource Studies at Cornell University, Brad Bell, summed up the situation quite nicely when he said that the widespread adoption of hybrid and remote work schemes during the pandemic has challenged some myths that have been plaguing those who prefer to work remotely for years. The biggest myth that has been busted is the notion that people cannot work productively from home. This has shattered a glass ceiling and led to a more open and accepting world for remote and hybrid work regimes. But clearly, Elon Musk does not believe any of that. Well, Mr. Musk might be in for a rude awakening when he realizes that he will start losing talent because of his archaic principles, especially if he plans on acquiring Twitter. All we can say at this point, however, is that we hope the business mogul with a mind focused solely on the future can leave work models of the past where they belong, in the past, and learn to move with the times. That's a wrap for this video. What do you think of Elon Musk's stance on hybrid and remote work? Do you think his stance will make him lose talent and hinder his acquisition of Twitter? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.